John, super excited to have you on the show. Pumped up. Had a chance to really go down a little bit of rabbit hole, listen to your podcast, getting a better understanding of your background and Supra Human, your company. Um, I'm telling you, man, your podcast fire me up. I definitely want to talk a little bit more about that. But maybe you could just take a second and quickly give a quick overview of Supra Human.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be on the show. Superhuman is a company I created. Kind of a long story short, I was a gym owner. So after my NFL career, I moved back to Salt Lake City where I grew up, opened up a gym where I wanted to really instill a mentality into young athletes. And so it was a gym, obviously physical performance was a huge thing that we did, but also this idea that I wanted to get into these young kids' minds and teach this mentality that could take them far in sports. But ultimately, I knew it was much bigger than that life. And as I did that, I got connected with World Series champions. I trained, dozens and dozens of NFL players. NFL combine guys would fly in and I would train them to run faster and jump higher. And ultimately, I decided a couple years ago that I wanted to take this fitness platform and I wanted to move into, a space where I was at in my life as a new dad, entrepreneur, and I wanted to virtualize it. So I knew that I was done being a person that was going to be in the gym at 5 a.m. and stay there until 9 o'clock at night. And I needed this lifestyle balance. And so I took my company, I brought it into an online format, and we've been running with that probably since 2019. So we have clients all over the United States. And what we do is we take a person, we get them into the tip top physical performance shape, usually guys 35 years old to maybe 55 years old that are entrepreneurs that, have this idea that they want to be in shape, but for whatever reason, they're not getting optimal results. And our whole thing is let's not stop in the middle. Let's be elite in everything that we do. That includes physical performance. It includes emotional performance. It includes mental performance. And we just go all in on optimizing our body from our soul to the outward appearance.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about it. I know in your most recent podcast, I was listening to it this morning, just preparing for our talk, and you talked a lot about sort of this optimizing, maximizing human performance, right? And, we talked about the fitness aspect of it. We talked about, you talked about nutrition, and then you talked about this like high achiever mentality and mindset. And, you think about like, professional sports right now. And the example that comes to mind is a guy like LeBron James, right? I mean, this guy is like, probably has, a staff of people that are handling everything from his nutrition to workouts, sleeping in hyperbaric chambers. I'm sure he's got sports psychologists, et cetera, et cetera. And you're trying to reach this peak performance, right? You have to separate yourself from what your God-given talent is and find a way to compete in this world. And you're taking that mentality, but you're applying it to people who are, not necessarily trying to play basketball anymore, but CEOs, people that are trying to do in the entrepreneurial world, which I love. But talk to me a little bit of how that transition occurred.
Yeah, obviously being a professional athlete, that was kind of second nature to me, where, it made sense that the more I put into myself, obviously I was doing it to perform better on the field. But when that last game is played, now the real game, right? What's a real game is this game of life. And so there's a certain amount of people out there like yourself that ultimately your drive is to see what you could become, right? You want to see how far you could take this thing. You ultimately want to know that you gave every ounce of energy that you had into becoming a better person, better whatever it is. And that includes your business, that includes your family, that includes, a multitude of things. And I used to think that how a person did one thing is how they did everything. And that sounds good in theory. But what I realized is there was these CEOs and entrepreneurs who knew how to make money, but they've given up every single other thing in their life to chase that 1 ounce of success. So maybe they were successful in their bank account, but they were non-existent as a father. Or maybe they were successful in their bank account and they would go on vacation, to Cabo, and they'd have to take their shirt off and realize that they literally paid no attention to their health for 10 years. And they didn't like that. And so I kind of rewound my theory on this, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I realized that that's not true for everybody, but I want it to be true. I want to instill this mentality that as good as you are in business, if you were to take your physical and mental performance to that optimal level, you would do even better. And I just started taking that message and putting it on podcasts. I started taking that message, writing about it on Instagram. And what happened was there was a bunch of entrepreneurs, C-suite people that started pouring into my program. Just like, John, you're right, man. Like I need to get back into the shape I was when I was an athlete. Maybe that was high school, maybe that was college. In my case, it was professional, but they knew what that felt like and the confidence and that edge that it gave them. And so we went all in there. And I get dozens of messages every single month from guys that are like, John, my business has taken off and I've lost, 40 pounds. And it's like it works in tandem if you understand the mental the mental aspect of it, the physical aspect. And I just kind of bridge that gap for people.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen the pictures and the transformation from a physical perspective, and they're, I mean, unbelievable. When you work with somebody and it starts to click, it all comes together, right? Because this isn't just something that, you're going to do. I mean, this is a lifestyle change. It's nutrition, it's physical, it's all those different types of things. How have you seen, people's professional lives also transform? I mean, have there been some pretty amazing stories?
Incredible stories. I mean, from more money to getting time back, a lot of my teaching is not necessarily work harder, do more, which is, if you're type A and driven and you're an entrepreneur, that's probably been force fed to you, from the time you were 5 years old, wanting to be a better baseball player, hockey player, or whatever. Right. And so there's some coaches out there that's like, dude, you just got to work harder. And some of us are like, we're grinding every
Mm-hmm.
day. So I'm huge on removing the interferences and becoming more efficient. When it comes to health and fitness, a lot of times people are simply putting all the emphasis on the 80% of stuff that gets them the 20% of result. And so they're going to the gym, they're trying to eat healthy in whatever way they were taught, right? Whatever book they read, whatever documentary they watched. And so the energy is already, the amount of energy is being expended. It's just being expended in the wrong place. So it's not do more, it's do smarter. And so what we do is then we focus all of our energy on the 20% of stuff that's going to yield 80% of the result. People do that in business sometimes that are successful inherently. I make that transformation and bridge that gap for them in their nutrition and training. And so a lot of times they're like, John, I not only lost all this weight, I have a six pack now, and it was far easier than the last 10 years I was putting this effort in. And all I had to do is this. And I'm like, yeah, you don't need to do two-a-days. You don't need to work out 7 days a week. You don't need to burn, the candle at both ends. Let's do it in a way that you can feel that flow and effortlessness. It's okay to win easier than making everything difficult for yourself.
So when people are signing up for the program and I know you're crushing it, right? I mean, taking a step back, you got out of the NFL, personal trainer, opened up a gym, and it was a grind. I mean, running a gym is difficult. It's hard to make a lot of money. And, you move to this more virtual world and it takes off, right? I mean, you're making more money than, you probably made professionally your entire life. So obviously it's resonating with people. What's the program like? And then, how is the program evolved, from kind of your initial idea of, hey, we got to go virtual to, what it is now?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I had client zero, right, or client one, where it was a buddy, and I trained his kids, and I said, "Hey, man, are you ready to get shredded?" And he's like, "Dude, you hit me at the perfect time." It was probably January, right, when I decided to hit him up, and he's like, "I've been thinking about it." I'm like, "I need you to go through this app, and I've created this program, and I'm going to dial in your nutrition, but I need you to do it, and I'm going to do it for free. I just need to have a story, and I need you to go through it with open eyes to tell me if there's any bugs in it." And I'm going to go to market with it. And so that was like the thought to going out there, getting first client, to then proving concept, and then ultimately building out this big thing. So in the beginning, like most entrepreneurs, I was doing everything. It was my IP in my brain, all the training, all the nutrition experience. So not only was I fulfilling, I was trying to market and do the sales and then fulfill. And I was juggling all these different things. And as it started to take off, obviously, like I couldn't do all that either, right? So I realized that it then became my job not to be the Michael Jordan on the floor scoring 30 points a game. I had to be Phil Jackson, right? I had to then go out and hire a team that was better at certain aspects than me. All the little detail stuff, that's not me. I need an operations manager, right? I need to hire a sales team that can sell the program so that I'm not just, if I'm selling, all day long, who's fulfilling? Right, then the fulfillment isn't any good, and then people are unhappy. So I had to get a person that was going to be very product oriented. Like, what's this process for the person that they're transacting with us, and we must get them the result. right? And then, John, where do I focus all of my energy, which is being the message, using the podcast, using my voice, getting on video, getting on this podcast, getting people interested, showing them that there's a better way. And so then I just started to scale with really cool people. And in any business, culture is everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to start with a set of core values. It's like, this is what Superhuman is about. We're going to rally around these things. And therefore, we're going to hire on them. We're going to fire on them. The decisions are made easier because of them. And if you do that and set the foundation, then we were able to scale to a business that was, it's multiple seven figures and growing. And we've only touched a few channels of advertisement. We've only touched a few slices of demographic of where we're going to hit. So we're excited about the future.
So you hit upon something that resonated with me. It's something that I've implemented in pretty much every company that I've ever run. It was first introduced to me. Actually, it was introduced to me in like 2012. I was brought in to be the CEO of this company, and the CEO at the time introduced us to. At the time, it was called Rockefeller Habits. It's turned into Scaling Up. The author behind that is Vern Harnish. One of his disciples is actually the book's right here, Gino Wickman, which is Traction, it's Entrepreneur Operating System. But they talk about exactly what you said, the importance of core values. It's who you hire, who you fire, who you promote. And it's been something that's been sort of ingrained with me professionally. I 100% believe in it. Where did that come from you? Did you have a mentor, or did is that natural, or were you introduced to a program like that as well?
So I've had a lot of mentors. And so I think with all success, like nobody's self-made, right? I took models from afar. I read a bunch of books. I paid a lot of money to hire people who have done, one of my life hacks is like, if somebody's doing something that I haven't done yet, I'll hand them whatever money it takes to show that, to then just get me on the right path,
Yeah.
right? Same thing with fitness. It's like, look, you can waste your time for 5 years, or we can get you in the most incredible shape in the next 16 weeks that you've ever felt before. It's easier for me to save my time and spend money, right? And so I hired a bunch of people that, broke beliefs and all that stuff. And I also learned what not to do. So when I had a gym, I transitioned from athlete to, general pop, because it was a little bit more scalable. I filled my gym up with people that I didn't really resonate with. I had to be somebody else in my marketing to bring the type of person in. And so what I realized what not to do is to ever create a program that doesn't have a core set of values,
Yep.
to where we know that the right person is coming into our organization, and then that makes the culture sticky. Otherwise, you have no culture. And in my case, the gym was like a churn factory. It's like no matter what we did, we weren't retaining any of the clients because they didn't really resonate with the message, because we said we were one thing, and then when they got in, we were something completely different. So when I started Superhuman, it was like, what are we going to center on? That's the message. Therefore, when people come in, they rally around that message,
Yeah.
not only our clients, but my staff. And now we're all speaking the same language. Now we're sticky.
Yeah. You've done a phenomenal job, at least from afar, in, to me, what seems like speaking to a very specific target demographic. You don't try to be all things to all people. There's absolutely like a tough love that sort of comes out in some of your messaging, but to that person out there, and it's a small percentage, right? By definition, you're talking to people who want to be the 1% or the 1% of the 1%. You're talking to a small group of people because, there's only so many of those people, but like you're crystal clear in regards to like, for those people out there that want to be elite, that aren't settled for average, that aren't settled for status quo, I can help you get there. And for someone who, I think that at least resonates with me from a messaging perspective, like it clicks right away. Was that conscious, that sort of focused target market customer?
Yeah. So when you go online, like the world is a bigger place than we understand, right? There's 300 million people in the United States. If I'm advertising just there's a lot more people like me in the United States than I think. Although I go out in my life and I don't really interact with those people all the time, right? Depending on where you live or where you hang out, certain environments are different. But I realized that there were a lot of people that wrote goals down. There were a lot of people that wanted to climb corporate ladders. There was a lot of people, human nature, that knew that they wanted this idea of success for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I speak, I have a very specific person in mind who is that business type person who has the desire to live a certain type of life. And I just speak to that person over and over again. I'm never, what I like in the fitness industry, I see a bunch of fitness professionals try to convince a person that they should be healthy. I've never done that. Never, ever done that. I see that mistake. My feed is full of it, right? Where fitness professionals are trying to convince the American that they should become healthy. I'm not wasting any time there. I'm convincing the American that already knows that they should be healthy. They're already putting their energy in, but they're not getting the result. And so I'm just convincing that person that there's a better way. And then I'm also convincing them one thing that's very important, that they shouldn't stop halfway, that they're already doing it. Therefore, go all the way, because the extra effort that it might take to get to that 1% level they're already doing it. So I just convince them not to stop at the 20-pound weight loss, but to go get the 6-pack and literally see how that feels when they put on that, tailored suit and walk out into a boardroom, and the confidence that they feel. I'm selling people on that. And so I've done a really good job of understanding human psychology and just what is a certain type of person is going to gravitate towards that.
So a little bit of the, how the sausage is made type of thing. I obviously record a podcast, so I might have a deeper appreciation for how difficult it is to just turn on a microphone and speak into it for 20 to 25 minutes and actually have like a cogent and clear, interesting, articulate thing to say that somebody's going to want to download, read. And that's what your podcast is, right? It's a crutch in a lot of ways for me to have interesting people like yourself and just ask them questions and have a conversation. You actually get on, you record, 25 minutes. I've listened to a number of them. They're really good, well thought together. You stay on point, you get your point across. How do you prepare for those, man? That's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I've had, ironically, somewhat of a fixed mindset in a lot of ways, and a growth mindset. Again, it's not a one or the other thing. In certain aspects of my life, I was very growth mindset oriented. Never played high school football, ended up playing in the National Football League, right? I looked at failure as just learning in a lot of ways. But also in my career, I was very fixed on certain things as well. And so when I decided to do the podcast, I'd wanted to do it since 2014. Just like everybody else, imposter syndrome. Like, dude, who's going to listen to you, right? Like, what are you going to give to the world? And back then, right, it was like I should have done it, but I wasn't ready yet. So when I finally decided to do it, I went in with the ultimate growth mindset. I'd undergone a transformation mentally, and I was like, you know what? I need to just do this for myself. And I went into it with this idea that I didn't care really. I mean, I did, but I was like, if nobody listens to this, I'm doing this for me. And so the first episode 0 to probably 75, I don't think they're very good. Like some people's like, they think it's somewhat good, but I'm like, if you're listening from episode 201 and going backwards, they're pretty good after 75, and really good, probably 150 and above. But 0 to 30 was absolutely terrible in my mind. I would sit there and be like, what am I even trying to do? Luckily, though, if I go back and look at the stats from the first ones, 2 people would listen, 4 people, 6 people. Nobody was listening. So I might as well get the suck out when 2 people are listening, right? And so it's the best thing that I've ever done in my life to do the podcast like that, because the way that human beings think is like all of it is in our mind, all these different thoughts and feelings and emotions, and we're trying to like figure out our personal philosophy. What the podcast did, when you speak, it organizes those thoughts. And it's hard at first because I didn't know what my personal philosophy was. Doing 201 podcast episodes that are 25 minutes long that aren't interview style, I had to like formulate these thoughts, and it crystallized in my brain. So like now, if I get called to speak on stage, something that I didn't like to do, I have like all this unconscious hours put into this deal where I can formulate my thought process very clearly. And it's all because of the podcast. Episode 0 to 30 or 50, I would like cringe if I listened to them. I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. So, for anybody listening, if you want to do it, like just embrace the suck and you'll get better over time as long as you don't quit. I put 201 episodes in, and I can't wait to think about what it might sound like at 1,000.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel the same way as I'm putting these things together. So where's the book, man? I mean, it feels like you got tons and tons of content here, ready made for a book.
Yeah, I've been working on the book. It's just that's another step, right? It's like now I'm speaking it, crystallizing it into a book has been a process where I've dabbled in it. I have a couple chapters written, and the organization of even a lot of these thoughts that are kind of crystal into the most important ones, that's a whole other process of just slicing the unnecessary stuff away and understanding, the target demo of the book, which is similar to the podcast, but there's still a lot that goes into that. So my goal in 2022 is to have an actual physical book that is out, and I'm in the process of just like cutting the unnecessary out and getting something out into the world that's going to provide value. And once again, trying to do that with a growth mindset where it's like, look, I'd love for it to be a New York Times bestseller. Obviously love that, but it's not really about that. Just get it out there. It's going to help one person. And if it does, all the work that went in there is worth it.
You talk a lot about goals. We've talked a lot about goals just since we've been on this conversation. I'm assuming that's a big part of the program. How do
Yeah.
you structure that?
Yeah. So we want a person to get very crystal clear on what the outcome is, right? And so I'll talk about that in broad terms. Like sometimes people have business goals, although they're in a fitness program. Obviously, though, the fitness component goal is going to be very, very, very specific. So if a person comes in, the first thing that they do is they get onboarded. Onboarding specialists is then going to show them exactly how to utilize a program, make them feel comfortable, introduce them to the group, introduce them to their one-on-one coach. And that first conversation is like, what exactly do we want here? And like most things, if you ask that question, a lot of the struggle that people have is in their vague mind, they want one thing, but everything they've done to that point is like a completely opposite detour of getting that one thing, right? So, half the battle is getting them clear on not just wanting to lose 20 pounds, but like exactly what they want out of this fitness program. So for example, we always have a person take a picture or send a screenshot of the person that they want to look like physically, right? Physical component is only one of it, but that's what they're coming into our program for. So we're going to get very specific about that. I have on like my vision board behind me, King Leonidas from 300, right? That movie came out. He's a Spartan, black beard, shirtless, jacked, six pack all the time. I'm like, dude, that's what I want to look like, right? So in order to get that look though, it's going to take a very specific style of training. If I love to ride Pelotons, but wanted to look like King Leonidas, it's not that Pelotons are bad. It's just the wrong strategy to look like that. In order to look like King Leonidas, I'm going to have calluses all over my hands, right? I'm going to have to grip a steel bar and I'm going to have to put in work, not 2 a-days, but I'm going to have to lift heavy for 4 times a week. And so I know specifically what the outcome is. Therefore, I know how to formulate a plan. What we do is I don't force somebody to want to look like King Leonidas. There are certain people that's like, dude, John, I'm 50 pounds overweight. Like, I just got to get healthy, man. Like, I have to lose this weight. I'm like, cool. What do you want to look like? And, if they say they give me King Leonidas, I'd be like, cool. Like, we can worry about all that stuff later. For now, though, there's a lot of different ways we can lose weight. If you have a Peloton and you love it, like, we'll implement that in your plan. We'll implement, you just walking 10,000 steps, 12,000 steps. If you like to do yoga, that's cool too. At a certain, and we're gonna slash this fat off through specific nutrition protocols. At a certain point, though, if you want to look like that, we're gonna have to get into a gym, and you're gonna fall in love with that. But if they absolutely hate like barbells and kettlebells and dumbbells, but they want something else, we realign the expectation and just tell them what's possible. So a lot of times in fitness, man, they literally are just misinformed on what it's going to take to get that end goal, right? And so we get them very clear on what it's going to take, and then we help formulate a customized plan that is going to be something that they enjoy doing. Because if they don't enjoy it, it's going to feel like gritting their teeth.
And then it's nutrition, and I know there's a big mental component of it too, but nutrition just plays such a huge component of being ripped and having abs and all those types of things. And then, of course, the training component of it. So you're personalizing, you're putting together programs with the idea that they're going to go to their gym or a home gym or whatever it is, follow this particular routine, and then the nutrition component. For me, I've always found nutrition to be the hardest.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that feel that same way, kids, wife, time. How do you, when someone like myself says something like that, what do you tell them? Or how do you have them approach it?
Yeah. So basically a couple things. One, a lot of times people come in with this idea that food is good or bad, right? And so the question that they ask is, John, what should I eat? And so that's missing, like, not to get too technical, that's missing a big component of it. The quantity is going to be king, right? So actually very important is the quantity of specific types of foods. If we don't answer that question, a person could absolutely get results. That's why intermittent fasting works, paleo, keto. It's like they're not really concerned a whole lot about quantity. The type of food is gonna diminish the amount of food kind of in a roundabout way so people can get pretty good results. But then there always this plateau. It's like, well, why don't I look like King Leonidas if I'm putting all this work in? We got to get very specific about the quantity. And so all the stuff that you said, time, wife, family, some people are like sales guys, right? It's the mentality then comes in where if I can get you to buy into the edge or the feeling that that's going to give you, and you can, as a business mind, you're going to then start to think about the ROI that it would have if you had abundant energy, your suits were completely tailored, you walk into a boardroom, you have six abs if you ever go on a company retreat like that, you absolutely have to have desire for. And if you don't, like, you're probably not going to do what it takes, plain and simple. And so the mentality, people come into this environment, right? And I just read this story, quick little story about goldfish being released into the wild, and these people found these gigantic goldfish, like this, right? And they were pet goldfish. And so if they were in a fishbowl, they would never see the day over 4 inches. But these goldfish got released into this environment where all of a sudden they're like, these goldfish were huge. The environment forced them to adapt or die, right? So you come in as superhuman, and all of a sudden, all those excuses that you think you have, you're like, dude, I'm a seven-figure business owner. I'm busy. I got family and kids. Here I am. And then we just had another guy that's 42 years old that just, as an eight-figure business owner, and he has dialed six pack from a before picture that he wasn't proud of. And it's like, what's your excuse? And then we show you, of course, John as a professional athlete can get shredded, but what about the 100 other guys that were not, that now are? And in that environment, it's like, dude, you don't really have excuses at that point. Now, for some, that desire is never switched on, right? And what I'm saying is a lot of people are motivated away from something. They can see the photo that their wife snapped of them on the beach and be like, oh, dang it, like, I don't like that look. I got to do something. And so they're away from that moment motivated. So as the farther away they get, it's the pain is less intense. So they always go about halfway and they never finish, right? So what we do really well is we help a person flip that motivation switch towards the ultimate feeling. And once they see 100 other men doing it, it's like, oh, dude, I want to feel that too. And once we can do that, everything is possible. Most people just don't put themselves in the environment where that's an expectation. And that's where I think we differ from anybody in the industry. A lot of people in the industry sell people on losing 20 pounds. We sell people on being elite.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I don't think gamifying is the right word, but I don't know. I mean, what your take on CrossFit was. I did CrossFit for like 8 or 9 years or something like that. And the thing I liked about CrossFit is it brought competition back to working out. Right, I'd
Mm-hmm.
show up, and it wasn't just that I was moving the weights or getting the calluses on the hands or putting in the work. I had somebody next to me that was doing it too, and I'm a competitive person, so I wanted to beat that person, which pushed me to work out harder. And obviously the results come to it. And without getting into whether there's injuries and all those types of things, and whether CrossFit's the best thing in the world, it seems like if you're in this program and you get somebody who is a competitive person, a type A person who wants to be the best, and then you start to kind of, I don't say pit them, but you put them in a situation where it's like, look at all these other people, they're doing it too. That just motivation of like, oh, okay, well, if that guy can do it, I can do it too. Just seems like it would be a big push to help people, see success.
Yeah, yeah. Because in like the gym world, it'd be like, successful business guy comes in, sees a young younger guy with abs that's like, not very successful in business. And in his brain, he goes, yeah, who cares? Like, he doesn't have a family. Like, he's not running a business like me. Go have your abs. I got $1 million, right?
Yeah.
But what happens in our environment is like, it's not that everyone's a millionaire in there, but we have attracted a lot of CEOs and people that have put their life's work into their business. So they come in and they see the guy who has an equal or bigger business than them with more time commitments than them that does it. It's like, oh, then you're absolutely right. That competition then makes sense. It's like a lateral look, slap yourself in the face moment where they're like, you're right. Like, it's not just young broke people who can have abs. There's some guys that are really successful with families and no time that do it too. Like, I got to step my game up. And so it is, this competitive spirit that I think is super healthy, right? It's not a comparison thing. It's just like, I want to inspire people to become the very best version that they could possibly become mentally, physically, emotionally. And so I think a lot of men and a lot of America for that matter is just, they stop short.
This is authentic to you. You look at your background, professional athlete. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you didn't play high school football and made it to the NFL. And I know you played at Utah under Urban Meyer and that type of stuff. But obviously authentic to yourself, and you pushed yourself to an elite level athletically, and now you're running a multi-seven figure your business and as an entrepreneur. I think that's amazing. Have you always been like that? I mean, obviously we all evolve, but if I was going to talk to 24-year-old John, would I have predicted that, this would have been this evolution for you?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a professional athlete and I made that dream come true. So I think there was a lot of manifestation. I know that there was a lot of manifestation. I did things now that I know and understand, like what I did to get there. Um, but when that was over, I lost all the confidence in a really weird couple week period where I go from being the guy who was going to get the next big contract to a guy that was struggling, right? And a guy that if you pass me a ball, I drop it, and I couldn't break myself out of this funk. And so really quickly, I go from, being on top of the world to being out of the league. And being out of the league, my initial reaction was like make excuses, blame the coach. That coach was, an a-hole, all the stuff that we normally do, right? And and then I started a business and it wasn't very successful. I almost went bankrupt and all this other stuff in between me being successful. And there was a lot of time there where I doubted what I was doing, right? At that point, I gave my life to football. I'm 27 years old. I'm out. Now I'm 30 years old and still, now all my money's gone and I'm trying to do the gym thing. And I look at buddies who, went to college and got right into real estate and they're driving the nice cars and they got a family and their life is head and shoulders above where mine should have been because I put all my eggs into football and then football was taken from me. So then there was a lot of time where I was like, am I cut out for this business thing? Right? Like maybe I'm just not meant to be successful, or maybe I don't deserve success in that way. Maybe, my life is just supposed to end up like this. And so there was a whole lot of stuff I had to work through to get to this point. And so I would answer that question that I always operated with this belief that if one person can do it, I could too. And that was 5-year-old John. Look, some people are playing in the league that they came from somewhere. They're human beings. It's possible for me too. So even with that in business where I was struggling, I doubted myself sometimes, but I always found a mentor that was doing it. And that would break that belief for me. It's like, well, he's doing it. I probably could too. And then I just had to get over all the fears associated with like actually doing what you and I do. What's holding a person back listening right now is probably at the root of it, I truly believe a person's afraid of judgment, rejection, and humiliation. It's always the fear of what another person's going to think. And so I was always holding myself back to be the person that put myself out there, because if I did and someone rejected me, that would be terrible, right? So once I uncovered all of that stuff, I could finally find that success again. And the mistake that I made in the NFL then come full circle was once I got there, that was it. My goal was to be in the NFL, wasn't to be Hall of Fame. And I have friends right now that like they have had Hall of Fame careers. It's not a talent thing for most of them. It's this mentality that somehow they had where I let mine fall apart. And for the past 12 years, I've been like obsessed with figuring out what went wrong in football so that I never make that mistake in family or business or fitness again.
You touch upon this like fear of failure. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's so real. I know it's something that I've wrestled with in my own life. I think sometimes I still wrestle with it. It's just I don't want to start something because it's almost like a fear of rejection or judgment or whatever you want to call it. But I think it limits so many people in so many different ways, and it's so important to just take the step, get yourself out of your comfort zone, and do different things. Is that something you work with your clients on?
All the time, and athletes too, right? Some of the best athletes, like I'll work with them, and that uh, I was this kid who I was so afraid to fail, right? That drove me. It gave me fuel to like get to a certain point. However, it then locks you up in certain ways. You can't ever feel the flow. Like you're never going to be in the zone like LeBron or Kobe or the greats are going to feel more often than not because you're outside your body. You're worried about the coach yelling at you. You're worried about what your parents are going to think if you drop a pass, right? High school kids or littler. You're worried about what the people in the stands are going to write about you, and so you're hyper aware of everything but what's inside to you. And the reason is it's not actually the failure that you fear; it's the perception of fear.
Mm.
It's a perception of this failure from another person's point of view. If there was nobody around and you failed, you'd be like, cool, like I'll just get up and do it again. Super simple. I'll learn from it, do it again. But if you fail in front of people, that's where the fear is. And so I've uncovered that. And like if a person has a young athlete, if you could get to the root of a high school kid or middle school kid's fear, like what are you really afraid of? And you could help them overcome that. They could go out and play lights out. That's why some people, like I could practice and I made all the team. Like I would put me on scout team, they hold up a card, run this route. I rip people to shreds. Put me on the real team where the coach is like hyper aware of like what I'm doing. And all of a sudden, like they yell at me and it's like I freeze up. I can't do it. What's unconscious becomes conscious and I go outside my body and that perception like kills my ability to play. Same thing in life. You can't do business if you're afraid to fail. You're literally that perception is killing you at every step. And so if we could just uncover that and then go out there with this ultimate growth mindset. Look, you're going to make mistakes, right? You don't know everything. It's all good. You make a mistake, you learn from it, you move on. Everything in the world goes wrong. You start over, you do it again. It's like, what other choice do you have? And it's like those entrepreneurs are the ones who win. They've come to terms with this fear. They've understood it and they're able to, go all the way.
Right. Along with, sacrifice and work and all those other types of things that are involved. But I agree, your mind can get in the way of so many things. I mean, you see it in athletics, especially in sports like golf or something that truly is, with football, I think the thing with football, I used to always tell people is like, once the ball snapped, it you have your assignment, but there's some reaction that involves, and you're just sort of moving in real time. You don't have a whole lot of time to think about things. But God, I mean, I play golf in my spare time, man, and it's like standing over like a 5-foot putt for some buddies with like $20 on it, and it's like, again, I can talk myself out of making that putt, 100 different ways.
Mm,
But
so true, man.
so,
I've done that too.
uh, so you're a basketball player, right? Played basketball in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Basketball, baseball, yep.
Basketball, baseball. It looks like you went to junior college. Is it?
Yeah, went to Snow College.
Uh-huh.
How that all worked out is, yeah, I played football growing up. It was a sport that I loved. I was very athletic. All of a sudden, I grew, super tall, and I was a stick figure. And when I was going out for the football team, and as a sophomore, June came. We graduated ninth grade. First thing we had to do was summer conditioning. We went into a weight room, and the coach said, max out on bench press and squat. And I was like, oh, I've never done any of that. But I walked over with 5 friends. We were warming up on the bench press and they all went 95 pounds, 25 pounds on an Olympic bar on each side. And that bar crushes me. And as high school kids would, they're making fun of me like, oh my God, this is so light. Like, I can't believe, you're so weak. And my confidence again just kind of shatters. And so I'm like, Dad, I'm not going to play football like, I'm going to get crushed out there. I'm small and I'm weak. I'm going to focus on basketball and baseball. However, can you help me get strong? Because I realized in that moment, like, I did, like, it wasn't just get bigger, faster, and stronger for football. It was like, I didn't want to be the skinny kid, right? So my dad sets me up with this guy who was a power lifter at the rec center. And for the next 3 years, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I get the crap kicked out of me every single night. That's where my love of fitness came in. Not only did that happen, I felt the confidence kind of like build in my body. I felt little muscles pop out, right? I could see that. And so I started to love it. I went from being able to dunk a basketball to being able to 360 dunk a basketball. Problem was my senior year, we went 1-19. We won one game, lost 19, right? I didn't get recruited. So now I was going to have to go walk on, and I only applied for one school. All my eggs was scholarship. I'm getting a scholarship. Scholarship didn't come. So I applied for one other junior college, and it was like, I have to go here or I'm going to, or I'm going to have to sit out a year. So I go to this junior college. I knock on the basketball coach's door and I say, hey, here's a film. I'd love to try out for your team. I just want to be a walk on. He's like, look, I can't even watch your film. We're going to have tryouts just to appease the president of the university. My roster spots are full. So, John, if you want to play, do so at a different college. I'm just being honest with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. My dad's like, what are you going to do? And I looked at him and said, I'm not done yet. And we went and knocked on the football coach's door with a basketball film. And I said, I planned on playing basketball here. Coach said this, look, I'm 6'5". I think I could be a pretty good receiver. Here's me dunking a basketball and, hitting the rim, like clear up by my bicep. I can run, I can jump. I think I could, do something. And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm about 185 pounds at this time. And they said, look, we'll give you a shot. And so I got the shot. I went to tryouts, didn't know how to run a route. We do one-on-ones, and I said, quarterback, just throw it long and far, and I'll jump over and catch him. And so that's all I did, like Randy Moss, right?
Yeah.
And so the coach saw a couple of those, said, we can teach this kid how to run routes. Like that athleticism is real. So long story short, I didn't play that year. I redshirted because I had to learn what a cover 2 was, and cover 3 had no idea. And then I played the next year and transferred to the University of Utah, where Urban Meyer was a coach,
Yep.
won the Fiesta Bowl, and then ultimately, had a really good year. Quarterback Alex Smith, and just took to keep taking those little steps.
Yeah, and you were a wide receiver, right? Did you move to tight end in the NFL, or did you move it towards your latter years at Utah?
So I was a wide receiver senior year. ESPN, like Mel Kiper Jr., had me as the 4th best receiver to come out of that year's draft. I broke my leg the last 3 games of my senior year. So I went from a for sure 2nd round draft pick. Combine, I would have blown numbers up, but I break my leg and I can't run for 10 months. No combine, no nothing. Draft comes and goes. Oakland calls me up and says, we have $5,000 and a plane ticket for you to come try out. That's all you're getting from us. And I'm like, done. So I get there, and when I got to training camp, Fred Bolitnikoff is a wide receiver coach. And so I go into Fred's office and I have my notebook, and he said, John, Mr. Davis said that if you want to make this team, you're going to have to do it at tight end. And I was like, dude, okay, where's the tight end room? So I walk into the tight ends room, and there's 9 of us. They're only going to take 3. And they're talking about defensive line stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea this is a completely different game, right? And at this point, I'm only 225 pounds because I am a receiver. And I get in this room, and I'm like, I remember telling my dad, I'm like, I don't know why they don't cut me. I literally do warm-ups, I take a knee, and that's all I do. Like, they should just send me off somewhere else. Well, one day, fate would have it, 2 tight ends are hurt. Another one had a family emergency. All of a sudden, they're down to like 3 guys, and they're just running back and forth, back and forth. One guy starts throwing up on the sideline, and I'm wearing number 10 at the time. And in scout team, there was no tight end that lined up. And so the D coordinator is just cussing out the whole team. And the offensive coordinator looks around, and he's like, number 10, get in here. Can you run a post route? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I get down in 3-point stance for like the first time in my life. Their 1st round draft pick walks up on me, tries to press cover me. And I throw him to the ground and run for 80 yards. And I just have this grin from ear to ear. I'm like, dude, I know I can play this game, right?
Yeah.
And so I get kicked out of practice. The defensive coordinators like just reaming me because their 1st round draft pick I put on the ground, and I'm thinking at Utah this would be celebrated in college, but like you're not supposed to get super physical with
Right.
the 1st round draft pick apparently. So I get reamed. He kicks me out of practice. I take my helmet off and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm on the next plane out. That was my shot, right? So I'm walking off the field, but the problem was they didn't have any more tight ends. And so the offensive coordinator runs after me. He's like, F that, coach, like get in here. And over the next like 3 plays, I catch 3 balls. Randy Moss is on the sideline screaming, like, who's number 10? Right? Nobody knew my name. And the next day I got out there and I, you know, took a knee and they're like, go down to the tight ends. And so that was like, it wasn't a choice at that moment. It was like I was kind of hybrid both. But between Bolitnikoff telling me to go to tight end's room, splitting a little bit of time, and that solidified it that I was going to be tight end if I was to make that team. And so I made the team, opening day roster. 6 other people, veterans, got cut for me to be there, and found myself actually playing as a tight end like 2 weeks into the season in Denver, just getting completely thrown around. Like I had no business being out there, but they did. Like people were hurt, so I was there.
Yeah.
Just kind of trial by fire, man.
Yeah, running routes, I'm sure you're pretty comfortable with that, but lining up and blocking a NFL defensive end, that was probably
I never learned. That's why I'm here. So not only did I never learn, I didn't really love it. Going back to like the love of the game,
yeah,
I love being an athlete. I love catching the ball. But football, there's, for 3 years I was running down on kickoff, doing all the dirty work. And if you don't love something, it's a grind, right? I love football for the route running, the catching the ball, the athletic stuff. And then I was being asked to run down on kickoff and blow up the wedge. And it was like, I had to grit my teeth in order to do that. And so ultimately, that wasn't going to last super long. But I did last 3 years, scored a couple of touchdowns,
yeah.
lived a complete dream, and loved actually getting to experience that.
What was your playing weight? What did you get up to?
Heaviest I ever was 250.
Okay.
My 4th year
Yeah.
going into Cleveland. Not a super great weight. You would think that the dietitian stuff would have had me dialed in, but even back in 2008 and 9, not too long ago, their answer was eat more.
Yeah.
Said, John, just eat more. It's like, well, can you guys help me out? Like, what do you mean? And so, I put on weight that didn't necessarily translate to the weight that I wanted, but that was about as heavy as I got.
Yeah. I was a left tackle. I played tackle in college, and I walk around today at about 210. I got up to, I think the most I ever weighed was like 303 or something like that. It was the most I ever weighed stepping on a scale. So it was a big transformation for me. I think I got recruited my senior year. I was probably like 235, got to college and just put weight on. But I try to explain that to people, and I'm a few years older than you are. That was it. That was literally our nutritional program, was eat more. Like here's some weight gainer, drink it. Like here's a training table, grab an extra plate. And you do gain weight. It's not easy. It took me some time to put that weight on, but it's definitely not great weight. And there was no science behind it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm trying to figure out whether I just didn't listen to the people that they had, but like going back, like in my mind, even at the NFL level, it was still just eat more.
Yeah.
And I'm like thinking now, like I have NFL guys on, that are in Supra Human,
Yeah.
that we manipulate their weight down. And it's like, dude, they don't, like nobody's doing this stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is crazy where, they have all the resource in the world to do this, but even at the top level, sometimes you need outside counsel. So, and clearly back in the day, you and I, like we were just eating pizza for breakfast.
That's right.
And, doing whatever we could to put on the weight.
That's right. That's a true story, by the way. I used to order. They had this place called Woodstock's Pizza. It was right on campus. It was $5 for a medium pizza. They would deliver it to you. And you're poor in college, so $5 was like about all I could afford. But every night at around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, I would order my Woodstock's Pizza. They'd bring an entire pizza to my little dorm room, and I would eat it every single night. And I wasn't because I loved pizza. It was because I felt like I needed the calories. Otherwise, the next day I'd come in and weigh in and I'd be like 2 pounds lighter than I was the day before. So
true, dude. Yeah. And in the NFL, I got fined $400 every pound that I was under what they wanted me to be.
Sure.
So like if it was 240, like in Oakland, if I came in at 236, that was 400 times 4 out of my check.
Yeah.
And so I would literally, like on weigh-in days, just chug like Gatorade and water and fill myself up to like falsely get on the scale at 240. And I'm just like, dang, man, that's where I'm like, if I just knew what I know now, like that wouldn't have been that big of an issue.
Yeah.
But back then it was, man.
What do you walk around at now, weight wise?
So if I'm doing a photo shoot, I get down to about 221,
Okay.
and that's like all the photos that people would see on Instagram. 221 to 223 is
Yeah.
like the lean photos that'll pop out. I usually walk around at like 230 to 235,
Okay.
which is like a little bit healthier, 10-ish% body fat. I can eat in a very lifestyle type of way and
Sure.
not be super strict. But if I have to like dial it in, it's like a 6 week process. If I want to go on vacation, 6 weeks from now, I could dial it all in and be completely shredded out of my mind. And it's not very hard because I know what to do and know how to manipulate that stuff.
Sure. All right. The last question on this one, because I know we kind of teased it a little bit. You recently gone through a few little things, I guess, with Jacksonville, Urban Meyer. But that aside, and I want to hear your experience. Yeah, I think from a resume perspective, he's going to go down as one of the greatest college coaches ever. Just the amount of
Yeah.
success he's had, not just at Utah, then Florida, and then of course at Ohio State. What was that guy like, man? You caught him early in his career.
Yeah, you know what? Urban was about 36, so I'm 38, and I imagine him, I try to imagine what he looked like back then, and it was a young guy full of fire, right? Like he coaches in a way that's super hard. So if you were to ask all the Utah players, where one of the coolest things about Urban that I think that's important for people to know is one of the very first barbecues, team things that we did at Utah after there was a beloved coach that like was there for a long time. They got rid of him. Urban comes in, and so there was a lot of loyalty to this other coach. He recruited everybody, and Urban brings us in, and he starts talking about top five in college football. And he's like, I've coached at Notre Dame. I see the Michigans out there, and I understand what a top five program looks like. You guys have all the ability of a top five program. I know that sounds weird. Like Utah was, if they reached top 25, that would be like a really good year. He's like, we're top five. And as soon as you guys collectively believe it, we'll be a top five team. And I remember looking at him. I was kneeling down. I was looking at the other players. We're all looking at each other. Because at the time, we didn't believe it. We're like, this guy's crazy. This is Utah. This is like, we might crack top 25, but top five, like Michigan, like that's not hitting us, right? And every time he talked to us, he addressed us like a top five team. And even though he coached us super hard, what started to happen is as we won, we started to buy in a little bit more. Before it was done, he had every single person on the team, every single staff member, all the people that were on the medical team, all the GAs. We believed like the year that we won the Fiesta Bowl, there was a couple undefeated teams. There was Matt Leinart's USC, Auburn was undefeated. We were undefeated. We played in the Fiesta Bowl. We ended up ranked 4 in the nation with Alex Smith and Urban. And we were like, we'll beat anybody. And like, if you survey any of us, whether that's that we would have or wouldn't, to a person, we'd be like anybody we played, we would have ripped up in that game.
Yeah.
And so he instilled that in us. Now, if you surveyed all of the players that played for him, you're probably going to be 50% of people love him and 50% of people do not like that person. However, not all of them respected him.
Yeah.
Like all of us, like he's a winner, right? And so the way that he coached back then was hard. It was like if the person didn't like him, it was like he coached so hard that he was either going to like rip the greatness out of somebody like me, show me what's possible, or that style could like crush a person too. And so I've seen both sides of it. And so one of the very first practices that I had in Oakland, Randy Moss Randy Moss was a great guy, by the way, but we were doing red zone offense going in, and all of a sudden Randy was nowhere to be found. Coach Shell at the time's like, where's Randy? Offensive coordinator's like, where's Randy? To the wide receiver coach. Wide receiver coach points to the other side of the field. Randy's sitting down on a Gatorade cooler with his shoes off. They're like, Randy, and he goes, done, right? And I thought in that moment, I'm like, what would Urban do? Like in college, like that's unthinkable. In the NFL now, like I don't know. I'm like, would he just fall over? Like I literally don't know what he would do. And so I'm really close to Urban actually. And I was like, I don't know how the NFL thing's going to shake out. It's a different type of guy. They have contracts. A lot of them are making more money than you sometimes or other coaches. And that dynamic is a little bit different. So he is a phenomenal college football coach and is a winner wherever he goes there. I think the personality of coaching NFL guys is just something that certain coaches probably are better suited in different places. Nick Saban had a shot in Miami. He went back to college for a reason. It's just a better fit for certain guys.
Yeah, and then there's occasionally you get the guy like Pete Carroll, who's done pretty well in Seattle. But you look at Pete Carroll, and he's got like a more laid back type of personality where you could see how he could connect with the older NFL guys who've been in the league, who are veterans. Where some of these guys that like you said, they will bring the absolute best. It works well with the young kids who aren't making that money yet, but it's a lot harder to do that with a future Hall of Fame guy like Randy Moss, right?
100%, man. It's a different game.
So that Utah team, I was looking it up, just curious. Obviously, Alex Smith, remember that guy pretty well. San Diego guy too, actually. But Weddle was on that team.
Yep.
Dude, your boy Weddle, man. The guy had been out of the NFL for like 2 years. I turned on the TV the other day, and the guy's playing safety in like a NFC playoff game. Did you catch that?
I was playing golf with him the other, like literally a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
He flies in for a charity tournament. We're playing golf. He's like, yeah, I don't know. I just, I don't know what I'm going to do. Right. Still in shape, obviously, but to play at that level at 37 years old and even take a year off or, 2 years off in his case, I haven't ran full speed. I don't think like 100% all out for 10 years. Right. And I'm only a year older than him. And I'm like, it blows my mind that he could turn it on that fast. Just an incredible guy who loves football, love of the game. That guy would just go out and play, and you can see it in the way he plays. And I tell people to emulate guys like that. Parents are like, how do we teach my son how to be a better football player? You love it like Weddle loves football, and the rest the rest happens. So I just love seeing it. It's an incredible story for me.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. I love that guy. Well, look, man, I really appreciate the conversation. It's been a lot of fun. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, it's probably the easiest place, John Madsen Official on Instagram. That's probably where I'm most, I'm most active. So people hit me up on the direct messages. I try to communicate, answer comments. I love interacting with people on that platform. If they wanted to know a little bit more than that, johnmadsen.com is another place they could go to see, a little bit more, get on the mailing list as far as, my episodes that come out and whatnot. But everybody nowadays is probably on Instagram. So that would be where I would direct them.
Yeah. And if someone like myself is interested in signing up for the program, just go to the website.
Yeah. So johnmadsen.com has a link that you could click, or there's another website, go suprahuman.com, which would take you right into the ability to schedule.
Nice. And it's like a hybrid personal train kind of one-on-one type stuff with a lot of stuff that's digital and sent out.
It's everything. Yeah. So basically it's customized to what your goal is. We align you to the goal, and then the training piece we customize depending on access to a gym, style of training that you like, how many days you want to train. So we completely customize that. And then the nutritional protocol is completely customized to you. If a person wants to take it to a next level, we have at-home tests that they will send to you that you could do blood, saliva, and hair to see exactly what your deficiencies are, where we partnered with an amazing naturopathic doctor that does incredible stuff, tests hormones, food sensitivity, stuff like that. So we can get as detailed as a person wants. And again, the cool part about it is two things. Number one, it's custom to you. It's your protocol. And number two, the environment that you get inserted in, you're going to see other guys who are and girls who are just completely crushing it.
Love it. And the podcast, the show with John Madsen?
The show on iTunes, all the different podcast platforms, the show with John Madsen.
Right. Well, listen, man, I will tell you this. First and foremost, from a program perspective, I love what you're doing. It absolutely resonates with me. But, secondly, as an entrepreneur and seeing what you've built, I know how hard this is, and how much work goes involved and how difficult it is to put something like this together and be able to be successful across all the different channels and all the different things you're doing, man. So nothing but respect. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk.
Respect to you too, man. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the listeners, and hope to connect soon, man. Let's connect offline on text or Instagram.
Absolutely.